Stacy, I want to start with you. You're focusing on founders that have been overlooked for far too long. What are the priorities for this year?
Well, thank you, Emily, for having us. We are so excited about the opportunity that we have coming into this year. The Opportunity Fund has already invested $75 million in over 70 companies. We've looked at over 2,000 companies, so there's no pipeline problem. What we know is that it's not even an easy pass. It's really hard to pick some of the best companies that are out there. So we're looking for great companies, just like the rest of SoftBank, which are companies that have a great founder who's passionate about what they do, that have an idea that can scale and have the potential, the grit, and the perseverance to make it happen. We're excited to invest in many companies across all sectors, which is representative of our portfolio today.
Shu, your focus is Latin America, and you've made investments across a slew of sectors. Where are the biggest areas of excitement for you, especially as the pandemic drags on?
Yeah, I'd say to contextualize both the Opportunity Fund and the Latin America Fund, SoftBank is known primarily for this mothership fund called the Vision Fund. But there's a whole other group of SoftBank called SoftBank Group International that looks for pockets that are underexplored. And so Latin America, the Opportunity Fund, Miami are all part of a general idea that there are these pockets of activity where great founders exist and no capital exists, or not enough capital exists. So there's a definite connection between all those initiatives. Latin America, we came into in early 2019. There was hardly any growth capital there. The capital in the region was to the tune of $1 to $2 billion a year. That last year is probably going to be about 15 billion invested in Latin America in the year, and a flood of capital from foreign investors who really haven't been there before. The opportunities are much broader in Latin America than we presumed at first. Coming in, we thought it would be the usual e-commerce, fintech type of opportunities. It's been incredibly broad and deep across types of markets and industries. There's software companies in Brazil that are giving the American ones a run for their money. VTEX went public on the NASDAQ, or the New York Stock Exchange, I believe, actually, and is a Brazilian e-commerce enablement company, a software company. So you're seeing a lot more real high-quality, globally competitive entrepreneurship coming from these markets, which are often much more difficult to do business in. So the founders who build there are really battle-tested for the world.
Now, I spoke with Marcelo Claure, SoftBank's COO, and the CEO of SoftBank International almost exactly a year ago today about what the priorities were then. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We're going to continue to invest in companies that utilize data and artificial intelligence to disrupt traditional business models. We like companies that are making the way we work, the way we live, the way we play, making the world a better place.
And I believe he did that interview, in fact, from Miami. Stacy, I'm curious, that was at a time we didn't think the pandemic was going to go on this long. And I'm curious how the strategy or philosophy has changed, given that we're still in this.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. What Marcelo said is the same as it was a year ago. We just talked about how we just entered a new year, though it feels a lot like the same. We are still interested in investing in companies that are using data that are going to change the world. We have made a number of investments, one recent one in Welcome Tech, which is an amazing company that is focused on helping immigrant populations better connect with financial services. We're also investors in Praxis Labs, which is helping to use mixed reality to achieve areas around diversity and inclusion. These are all topics that were true a year ago, and they're absolutely true today. So we continue to look for great founders who are Black, Latinx, and Native American. The one thing I will mention is that we've not yet invested in a Native American founder. So one thing that has changed is that we spent the last year meeting with over 30 different people from the Native community to really understand how do we really invest in that community and find entrepreneurs who are building great companies. And so what we learned from that is that we've got to take a different approach to investing in the Native American community. And so we'll be looking at some partnerships this year. We may be reinventing a little bit around our investment model and maybe even considering some pre-seed investments, which is not something that we've done in the past. So we're excited to bring some founders in from that community into our portfolio in 2022.
Now, there's never been any shortage of headlines about SoftBank, especially since Masa announced he really wanted to double down on investing in technology. There has been turnover in the partnership, and also there have even been reports about Marcelo potentially leaving. Shu, what are you saying to founders about whether or not they're going to have the stability and the resources they need to be successful, and whether the relationships they're developing with folks at the fund will last?
Well, obviously, it's not wise for me to comment on private negotiations happening between my bosses, so I'm not going to do that. But as far as Latin America goes, we've built a team that is dedicated to the region and is very unique. So we have people living in Brazil, in Mexico, in Miami, all focused on Latin America. We have both an investing team and an operating team. The operating team is focused on helping the companies, once we invest in them, to be better, to achieve specific goals, a real operating muscle that we add to the capital muscle. None of that's going to change. And SoftBank's capital position is strong. SoftBank continues to invest around the world. And Latin America is representing a larger and larger component of that, not just for us, but for all capital allocators. We've seen every brand name investor in tech come into Latin America in 2020 and 2021. That's going to continue. So the region is as exciting as ever on its own merit. What we did in 2019 was jumpstart our own efforts there, but I think those efforts can stand alone now for the foreseeable future.
Now, Stacy, talking about the Opportunity Fund specifically, how will you measure success?
We measure success just like many other venture funds. We are in this to invest and generate venture-like returns just like every other venture fund out there. So success for us is, do we generate returns? Success for us is also the value that we create in the communities that our founders come from. We have a value creation team that is dedicated to working directly with all of the founders in our portfolio to not just give them capital and validate their business model, but to really create a community so that they can support each other. Ultimately, we want to change the face of wealth creation in our society. I can tell you now that more than half of our companies that we've invested in have raised follow-on rounds, many of which that we participated in. So another measure of success is how successful our founders are in scaling and growing their business, and the validation that they receive from the broader investment community in their ideas. And we're very happy to see that continue.
Now, we can't escape NFTs or the cryptoverse this year. And I'm curious, Shu, does SoftBank see crypto as an opportunity? How big an opportunity? And especially with countries like El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender?
Yeah, so we're strong believers in the Web3 revolution. This isn't about Bitcoin only at all. It's about a fundamental restructuring of some of the substrate that technology companies are built on. And that is as true, if not more true, in places like Latin America than in more developed markets, because there are many gaps to fill with this new technology. You gave the El Salvador example, but Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, all have innovation around Web3. So we're fully committed to it. In fact, we had a 2-week period where for every single day of that 2-week period, the entire Latin America fund had to spend 2 hours studying crypto. And that was either with an external speaker coming in or reading specific materials or watching specific content. And we're going to share that broadly now with our portfolio companies. We think this wave is real as mobile or cloud were and will persist. So we're all in on Web3 and crypto.